Welcome back to NewsX World. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching Focal Length, where we get you a briefing on topics from across the world. The war between Israel, US and Iran has entered a critical phase, with missile strikes targeting Israeli cities and Israeli airstrikes hitting military sites across Iran and Lebanon. Human rights monitors report that more than 1,000 civilians may already have been killed in Iran, while tens of thousands of people have fled Tehran amid intensifying bombardment towards the Iranian capital. The conflict, which for decades played out through proxies and covert operations, has now moved into open confrontation, direct indeed, raising fears of broader regional war with global economic and security consequences. Joining us today is Professor Hooshang Amirahmadi, an Iranian American economic and political analyst. He's a professor at the Edward J. Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy at Rutgers University, a former director of its Central for Middle East Studies, and a senior associate member at the University of Oxford. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World. Now, my first question to you is, the war between Israel and Iran has now entered its sixth day, with missiles striking Israeli cities and Israeli airstrikes hitting military sites across Iran and Lebanon. According to human rights monitors, more than 1,000 civilians may already have been killed in Iran, while over 10,000 people have fled. 100,000 people have fled Tehran in the first 2 days of the bombing. At this early stage of the conflict, are we looking at a limited military campaign or the opening phase of a much larger war that could redraw the geopolitical map of the Middle East?
Well, first, thank you for having me. Second, the number of dead people in the Iran side is much, much larger than 1,000. Even in one city of Sanandaj, it was reported that 600 people died, and in one school, girls' school, almost 180 died, and then they have been pounding Tehran and every other city every hour for almost 6 days. So I'm surprised that the number they say is 1,000. I think it's in thousands. That's a very, very miscalculated number. That's misguiding. So I think the first thing I have to correct is the number dead in Iranian side is much larger than 1,000 or 2,000 or even 3,000. It's much larger. The next thing is, see, this is a war that the US and Israel has imposed on Iran. This is, from the Iran side, is a defensive war. From the other side is an offensive war. I think it is the responsibility is on the shoulder of the offenders, the people who have invaded, that have attacked, to either stop or to expand. Iran doesn't have an alternative, an option to contain this war. Iran's ship has been sank, God knows, 4,000 kilometers from the war zone. So who is responsible for that? That ship wasn't in the war zone, was not in the war. So it's just, unfortunately, the international media is misrepresenting a lot of information that they have to give to the public. Iran attacked some of its neighbors, and I do not like that. I think that shouldn't have happened. But Iran attacked these countries because these countries have American military bases from which they attack Iran. Just think about it. If Iran was to establish a base close to India, and then from there to attack India. And then you will say, oh, now India has attacked an area that has nothing to do with it. No, it's like Russian coming and putting military bases in Mexico and then attack from there the American soil. Is that acceptable? No. What the US will do, US will hit Mexico, destroy Mexico. I think that everybody is misunderstanding this as if the Arab countries that were hit are innocent, that they are not in the war. Well, they are not directly in the war, but they are the bases, military bases from which the US is attacking Iran. So as far as the expansion goes, again, it's in the hands of the American and Israelis. They have invaded, they have offended, they can stop. And I believe they must stop as soon as possible, because this war is illegal, it is senseless, it is unnecessary, and there is no goal. The administration in the US cannot even tell you what the goal is. Sometimes they say that it is the missile, sometimes they say it is the bomb, which they have already destroyed, supposedly. Sometimes they say regime change. Now they are asking the Kurds to get organized, armed, to come and invade the country. I mean, it's a mess. I don't think the Americans know, the Israelis as well, what it is that they are after. That is the tragedy. And if they don't get to the bottom of their purpose for this war, this could go for a long time. Shifting goal from A to B to C and D isn't the way wars should go.
Now, for decades, Iran and Israel fought indirectly through Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iranian forces in Syria, and covert operations such as the 2010 Stuxnet cyber attack that destroyed roughly 1,000 Iranian nuclear centrifuges. What has changed strategically or politically that has pushed this long shadow war into open, direct confrontation between the two states?
Well, first, it was Israel that attacked Hezbollah. It wasn't the Hezbollah who started this. And the second, as you can see, during the war with Gaza, Iran tried everything in its power to stop the war from spreading in Lebanon, elsewhere. They were very helpful. In fact, Iran was very helpful to contain the war in Gaza. And later on, Iran contained the first war against itself to its own country. But this particular war is just something beyond any reasoning that someone may have. I mean, this is an unnecessary war. It has no purpose. I mean, the only purpose I can see is that they wanted to destroy a country, period. They wanted to destroy their country. Every country has the right to have a defensive capability. Iran has no bomb. Iran doesn't have even enrichment at the time. They have destroyed it, that they themselves said it has been destroyed. Iran has missiles, just like every other country in the region and beyond have missiles. The Arab world has more missiles than Iran does. Iran has no air power, very, very weak, has always been weak in air power. Iran has no bombs. And then on the other side, the American and Israelis have tens of thousands of bombs. They have tens of thousands of missiles and drones and everything else. Does Iran have a right as a sovereign nation to have a defensive capability at all? Is it the way international community is going to behave or to have relations with? That only a few countries can have everything and others cannot have anything. Will that work? Can that be sustained? Regardless of what happens in this war, Iran is going to come back at some point and still rebuild itself. Iranians have had 1,000 wars throughout their long history. In most of these wars, they have lost, but at the end of the day, they have stayed, and the winners and the conquerors have disappeared. This is Iran. Iran has a magical staying power. I think Americans and Israelis have to understand that Iran is not their average oil company that they have in the region around them. This is a real country with a great historic structure and backbone, culture, way of life. I think they are miscalculating what they can do to Iran. I think they are miscalculating that Iran's staying power. I mean, we know this Islamic Republic is very maybe illegitimate, they are unpopular, they are hated by the people, but what is happening is beyond the Islamic Republic. It is about a nation, about a country. They are destroying the country. They are destroying their, as they themselves say, their missiles, their ships, their infrastructure, their schools, their hospitals. What is the point of all this?
Thank you for highlighting that, Professor. And now Iran is believed to possess one of the largest missile arsenals in the Middle East, possibly more than 3,000 ballistic missiles, while Israel maintains advanced air power, including F-35 stealth fighters and layered missile defense systems such as Iron Dome and Arrow. Given this imbalance in technology and air power, how does Iran realistically plan to sustain military pressure against Israel?
Listen, Iran has no option but to get hit and stay standing. What Iran should do, no country will just submit, comes to its knee in a situation like this. Iran is a big nation of 92 million people, of 75 million voting population of the 16 above. Iran is defending itself. Every nation will defend. What option Iran has? Yes, the US and Europe and Israelis are very powerful. They have everything in their arsenal. But Iran, even with their fist, if that is only left for them, they will fight. Iranians, remember, they can destroy missiles, drones, planes, ships, but still they have to destroy 70 million people, and at least of which 20 million are in the regime side, armed with just regular guns. So again, Iran will defend. Yes, I think Iran will sustain this war. Indeed, I believe Americans are in a position not to sustain. Americans have been very good in destroying other countries when they invade, but then they had always had problems. They have always had problems to sustain beyond the first stage of their wars. In Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, Americans, wherever they have gone, they have first conquered, only then to lose. This will not be the last case. This is just the history. This is the Americans' own experience. They will lose territory then. They will lose that same, country. They will lose billions of dollars. They will lose their own economy here, everything. So I don't know what US is after. Iran is a very wealthy country. It is among the top 10 wealthiest nation on the earth. for the oil and gas, minerals, people, geography, consumption, consumer society. Iran is a huge asset. I think if I was America, I would have tried everything in my power to bring Iran back to its orbit as opposed to destroying it. Nobody benefits from destruction. Everybody loses. I mean, Iran may lose 10 times and 100 times more, but Americans are also losing. The Israelis are also losing. And then in the long term, they are all losers in war. War in the long term has no winner. This is another case. Yes, I believe Iran will sustain, and I believe in 4 to 5 weeks, Americans will declare themselves victorious and come home. That's my hope. And then see what else to be done to get this particular issue reversed and put in the right direction for it.
Yes, and Professor, building on your answer, no one is a winner, and in long term in the war, no one is a winner. So in Washington, lawmakers recently rejected a proposal that would have limited President Donald Trump's ability to expand military operations in Iran. Historically, when the United States has entered Middle Eastern conflicts, such as the 2003 Iraq War, which ultimately lasted nearly 2 decades and costed over $2 trillion, wars often last far longer than initially predicted. Do you believe the United States fully understands the scale of escalation it could face if the conflict deepens?
Well, this is the problem with democracy. Democracy has its own problems. Okay, as Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government, except that there is no better form than this. I mean, at the moment, the Congress is controlled by the conservatives, who is the party of Mr. Trump. So that's the reason it was rejected. The second, about American Congress, believe me, they will tell you, not even 20% of Americans believe that this Congress represents them. Not even 20% of Americans believe that this Congress is their representative. It's a very bad Congress, that people don't trust this Congress. Unfortunate, and this is a democracy. I have lived in this country for 52 years. I have worked with 7 presidents. I know what I'm talking about. So I think American really has to sit back and to see what it is they want to do. After all, this War Act that just was rejected yesterday has no impact on Iran. Iran is already in the war. They already have attacked Iran. This is for the other countries. Like, I think now in India has to be concerned that a person like Trump could start a war with India without any restriction. So again, this is an international relations issue. It goes beyond Iran. Unfortunately, I am very concerned, nervous about this international relations. This means we could soon have a World War III. Remember, wars are the product of stupidity, not reason or wisdom. Most wars have been the product of stupidity. And World War I and World War II and the World War III will not be an exception. I think the international community has to come out, get up, and feel the smell. The problem is, whatever is happening here in relation to Iran, I can tell you, will spread globally very soon. If you can fight a country, hit a country for bogus reasons, then that's what it is. I don't think that Iranians have acted right. I have been extremely against the Iranian regime. I have worked 40 years to mend US-Iran relations. I have done everything in my power to broker the two countries' relations in the right way. But unfortunately, Tehran kept rejecting anything I tried to achieve, and now they are paying the price. But unfortunately, it is not just Tehran, the mullahs who are paying the price, that the Iranian people are paying the price. The nation as a whole is paying the price. The Americans are paying the price. The Israelis are paying the price. As I said, in this war, nobody will win at the end of the day. We are all losers. Israelis are losers, Americans are losers, Iranians are losers. There is no winner.
Thank you very much, Professor Amirahmadi, for sharing such powerful message with us on NewsX World. Now, last but not least, nearly 20% of the world's oil and gas supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz, and even limited disruptions there have historically triggered global energy shocks. Already we're seeing shipping disruptions and reports of tens of thousands of seafarers trapped by security risks in the Gulf. How vulnerable is the global economy to this conflict if it continues to escalate?
Yeah, but the domestic political economy, the global political economy is already in trouble. The IMF and the World Bank will tell you that the world economy is at the edge. In fact, in many countries, it is on the tremendous decline. A few countries are still growing, but it is a very bad situation that this war will make it even worse. I think the oil price has already gone up. The gas stations in the US have added, to the cost. And I think at the same time, people like me who have a few dollars in the stock market are losing. The stocks are crumbling. Okay, yesterday alone, my money declined by, I think, about $16,000. A small amount of money. Think about it. And I think this is across the US. I think the Americans have to be extremely careful with what they are doing. The average American will soon find that life for them will be impossible in this country. Absolutely impossible. So again, it is not just the global economy and the local economy as interconnected. There is no such a thing as a global economy separate from the local economy. When the global economy changes, the local, gets the burden, and then vice versa. The fact is, local global is only one piece, and I can see that what happens globally impacts locally the gas stations of my little neighbor.
With that, I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Professor Hooshang Amirahmadi, for sharing your insights on Focal Length with us. With that, it's a wrap on this episode of the Focal Length. For more international news and updates, stay tuned on NewsX World.